I'm Justin Boyd.
Tristan Jones.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement. Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement, and welcome to Watchers Football Weekly, a podcast within a podcast. And a podcast that's all about the pigskin. Today, we are here to discuss the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Oftentimes, people refer to this as like the best weekend of football, and sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I don't know. It's like a moniker this round has gotten over the years. Tristan, I'll start with that. Do you have any special affinity for the divisional round as opposed to the championship weekend or wild card weekend?
As I look back in my football watching career lifetime, I maybe it's because of the volume, but like the more memorable games that I think of are in the divisional, right? And some of them are horrible memories, as we discussed last week in the Oilers realm. But I think the majority of the famous games came in the divisional. But then I could also think, personally, I'm a championship game guy.
Yeah.
It's the highest stakes that you can get to before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And we've seen so many classic games just in our lifetime in the championship game. And for me, just it's like a game 7. As close as we get to a NBA, Western Conference final, Eastern Conference final. So
yeah.
I prefer the championship game, but I do love it. Divisional weekend is in my top 10, sporting time, sporting events. There's more games, but ultimately I prefer the championship game. I want to see the absolute best of the absolute best.
Yeah. The only thing that is a drawback for me is just, you get used to when you watch the season and I'm a red zone guy. So I have to have the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games at a time. And then when you go from that to wild card weekend, you're like, oh, at least there's a game every time slot. But then divisional rounds where it's oh, we don't kick off at noon. We're kicking off at 2 or 3:30.
Yeah.
And then next week we're just 2 games. So as it the road kind of winds down, to me, that's when it's oh, this is almost over. And the divisional round is kind of the first time I'm but yeah, we're really down to there's not a lot of teams left, not too many games left in this season that we've been following. So, but you're right, a lot of great moments in the divisional round. We had one in this year's divisional round that we're going to talk about in a little bit down on the NFC side. But let's start with AFC. I think we were remiss if we didn't start out with the Texans Chiefs game. Chiefs got the win 23-14. KC advances to their 7th straight title game. What are your thoughts on this game? How the Chiefs got through, the way the Texans played, just everything. Let's get to it.
This was a huge topic of discussion. This was a controversial game. Check the debate shows and the interwebs.
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting game. I thought on the Texans side, start with the good. I thought that they battled. I thought they looked like they belonged on the field with the Chiefs. I thought they looked much better, which I was kind of worried about all week. I thought they would look much better than they did in week, what was that, 16?
16, yeah.
In December. I thought it won't reflect in the score because the offense only scored 12 points. But they moved the ball very well in between the red zone, in between the 20s. And the running game was well. I thought they passed the ball well. I just thought they couldn't get enough stops. But the offense looked decent. It looked better than it had looked until the absolute key moments, which brings us to the bad. They really just their O-line just got completely outclassed. Karlaftis had 3 sacks, could have had more. Minu had a sack. They were getting pressure from every type of way that you can get in. Corner blitzes, safety blitzes, linebacker blitzes, just Karlaftis beating guys one-on-one, beating 2 guys, beating a double team, beating a chip, a running back chip. And as we talked about, from week to week with the Texans, even a quarterback as poised as C.J. Stroud, and as good as he is with, the ball in his hands and making decisions, you start getting so much pressure, it's going to affect you. It affects me on Madden, I take a couple of sacks and I'm looking down. I'm not even looking at the buttons
Yeah.
Looking at my receivers, you know what I'm saying? So like this is a natural human thing. Like
Yeah.
which brings me to like a brief epiphany I had about CJ Stroud the other night as I was in the garage listening to music, shall we say. I think with CJ, I think CJ is the kid that has usually had the right answers to everything. And it's sometimes when things aren't as easy, when the answer isn't as easy, like I don't think he fully trusts his instincts, like everything that he could do. You and I talked about CJ Stroud at his best, like him maximizing his potential as a quarterback. He's making more decisions to like run and get out of the pocket and use his legs. And he did that in his game. He did it, in the wild card round against the Chargers. Not consistently enough to like be a full threat on it, but he did it enough to like save some third downs, pick up some firsts and key moments. Like this is it, I am nitpicking, but it sounds like I am slightly disappointed in the fact that it's taken him this long to like bring that out. Like that offense could have been much more effective than it was this year, and they could have looked a lot better, and he could have ordered a lot more sacks.
Yeah,
he just kind of got out and just made a few plays here and there, just as a threat. It didn't even have to be something he does every single possession, which led me to the ultimately conclusion is, and I think he'll get here, but I definitely think CJ Stroud is a dog. Like he's absolutely a dog, a competitor, but he's at like 70%. And like for the Texans to make that next step, or at least the offense to take that next step, he has to get that instinctual dog of like, okay, I got to get out. I need to use every single tool in my toolbox to beat certain quarterbacks or beat certain teams.
Yeah.
You can't hold back. You can't wait until the second, third quarter to say, okay, I'm going to take off and pick up this first one we absolutely need it. Because that could be the difference against a Patrick Mahomes, against a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, maybe with the right group around him, a Justin Herbert, but you can't wait. So, slight nitpick on CJ Stroud, but ultimately I thought they played well.
Yeah, I mean, you said it well. Stroud, 245 yards to the air. He ran the ball a little bit. The Texans ran the ball pretty well also. Mixon had 88 yards and the one touchdown. Team ran for 149. And, the downfall was really the downfall the whole season. Like you said, they sacked him 8 times. He's constantly under pressure. Texans had some really bad special teams in this game also. A couple missed field goals, really bad punt, really weird play on the kickoff where Chris Boyd, no relation, actually made a good play, got up, threw his helmet, got a penalty, and then pushed his position coach or his special teams coordinator, which was just like, dude, it's the first play of the game. Like, what are you doing? Like,
I can't tell if he was like excited because he made the play or he was frustrated because he got yelled at for taking his helmet off.
I think he was frustrated. Yeah, I know it was such a weird, like, man, like you caused a fumble. Like, first of all, the Chiefs had a pretty good return. Then you're giving them 15 more yards after you actually were the only guy who kept it from being a 6-point deficit right there. Really strange way to open the game. That's to say a lot of stuff, but I think and we talked about this last week, CJ Stroud's got to become more like Jayden Daniels. And we're going to talk a lot about Jayden Daniels here in a little bit. But that's really, and honestly, like the Texans, they've got to fix their offensive line, and we all know that. They've also got to fix their scheme. That's probably going to meet a new coordinator, and that news might come next week as far as like getting rid of the current coordinator, or he might find a job elsewhere. But they've got to mix it up. They've got to change what they have because they have enough talent. They went toe to toe with this Chiefs team. I mean, it was not I thought it'd be like a 10-point game, and it kind of was, but they're way more competitive than I even kind of imagined. And they have a chance. And these windows in the NFL, really in any sport, they close a lot faster than you think they will. Even when you have a good young quarterback, you have a good young coach, you've got a strong defense, like you got to strike right now. And if they can fix the scheme and get some help at offensive line, this is a team that could be, competing with the Chiefs next year for the Super Bowl, I think.
I will say, I think everything you said was absolutely spot on. I will say another next step that they need to make is like mentally. Because they competed very well with the Chiefs team. Technically, this was a 11-point win. Like spotted them 2 points at the end.
What do you think about that? Not to jump you there, but like
I have
I
no
don't
idea why they did
like
because
there's like what 14 or 16 seconds left in the game.
I want to say there was like 19 seconds.
Okay, so like the punter running around wasted like 6 or 7 seconds.
Yeah, about 7 seconds or so. Yeah, but
I don't know. To me, it's like just punt the ball. Like you're gonna win. Like, even if they block the punt, like you're still gonna win the game. Like it was, I don't know. That was crazy. But anyway, go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
I didn't jump on that -9.5.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, just the mental part of competing at that level. Obviously you talked about Chris Boyd at the beginning. Like that's a bad sign. That's a bad omen for like handling adversity or handling like the size of the moment. Yeah. And then D'Amico Ryan's making a decision to go for it on 4th and 10.
That was desperate. That was so desperate.
It was a desperate point, like knowing, and then calling a play that was a long developing, slow developing routes for your receivers, which led to another sack. Like it was a lot of composure things, and then I was so disappointed in hearing D'Amico Ryans of all people, C.J. Stroud, Joe Mixon, Will Anderson. These are your leaders. Like essentially say that they went into the game with the thought process that they would have to beat the refs. Like I lost a little bit of respect for like that team as a whole. In that moment, like, obviously this isn't something that, lingers, but like that's disappointing to hear. Yeah. Like, hey, you guys made X amount of mistakes that directly lead to losing outside of like turnovers, but like bad coaching decisions, penalties, in the wrong time, beginning of the game, that could have been a 7-point game off top, if not for that quick 3 and out. But you did everything except turn the ball over to lose that game. So like putting a focus or even allowing that to like seep into your locker room, I think is a bad omen for like how this team will handle winning or trying to win on the biggest stage going forward. But I mean, all in all, like great defense. As we kind of move to the Chiefs side, like the reason why Travis Kelce had such a big game that he had, and like we got to point out, he had another all-time great game. Is the Texans, their whole MO is to take away the Chiefs receivers. Yeah. So like Stingley, Lassiter, like all those guys, taking away the outside, middle of the field wide open for Kelce. He was able to sneak in and get a post to the sideline. Like this was a vintage Travis Kelce game. Offensively, like he should be the story. The protection after the first quarter got much better on the Chiefs side because the first quarter they got beat up. Really, the first half they got beat up up front. Picked up in the second half. Again, they were able to pick up 3rd downs when they needed to, 4th downs, and finally got some points in the red zone. Man, that pass from Mahomes to Kelce is a classic, Mahomes to Kelce reel, like that on the highlight package.
Falling down. Yeah.
Kelce kind of adjusting his route. He was supposed to cut across the goal line, and he saw, the linebacker was kind of playing deep, so he adjusted, went to the back of the end zone and got it, man. Like second half Chiefs, like when they absolutely needed it, that's kind of what it kind of built into what we thought they should look like, at least what they could look like in the playoffs, and they did it. But like ultimately, this game was about Travis Kelce. Like he only has so many of these games left in him. So I appreciate him saving these for the big moments, and he delivered.
Yeah, 7 catches, 117 yards in the touchdown. It's just amazing how open he is, like all the time. It seems like, he just finds a soft spot in the defense and makes the biggest catch for year after year after year. I mean, now I think he only trails Jerry Rice in touchdowns and receptions in the playoffs, which is unreal.
Insane.
Like that just
Insane.
I remember as a kid, like, watching Jerry Rice and even later on, like, you're thinking, like, no one will ever approach his records, and obviously now the NFL is way more pass happy than it was 20, 30 years ago, but still,
So
to get near
tight
those
end.
records yeah, for a tight end also for a tight end, yeah, it's different.
And this is a tight end who played for some years with
Right.
Tyreek Hill, your Sammy Watkins. Like he's played with like some good wide receivers, especially when Mahomes got there.
Yeah.
And like they were still spreading the ball around, and he still was 2020, 2020 he led the team in catches. I want to say he did that in 2018 as well. Like this has been a remarkable career.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Um, just to kind of wrap up on the Texans, I just want to mention they did outgain the Chiefs at this game at Arrowhead. They had 336 yards to the Chiefs 212. So the offense actually showed up, played well. The Texans with this loss, they dropped to 0-6 in the division round. And I think that for them to ever get past that level, to get that monkey off their back, they're gonna have to have that division round game in Houston. They're gonna have to like have a good enough season, good enough record, because if they play the way they played in this game throughout the season, they don't lose that game to the Jets on Thursday night. They don't lose a game to the Titans at all. Like, and if you get a couple more of those games and you're hosting this game, there's a better chance that you end up in the win column more times than not. So we'll see if the Texans can get that fixed going forward.
But they're not properly prepared for those big moments in that division. Like
you're totally right.
Like this. You might play close games in the AFC South, but they're not like good close games. They're not like close games that are indicative of the competition you would face outside of the AFC South in the playoffs. Right. So they have to like really sharpen themselves outside of the division and like make sure, hey, win that game or compete a lot harder against Minnesota, a team, because that's a defense that you're going to have to face, a type of defense at least that you're going to have to face in the playoffs. So,
yeah.
No,
good point. And the final thing on the game, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this a little bit. Obviously, you mentioned it some, but the chatter after this game was more about the favorable calls that Mahomes gets or doesn't get than it was really about the game. And I want to say, like, as a neutral, neutral person in this game, like I'm an NFL fan. I don't really care who wins and loses. I really don't. I do think the memes are funny with Mahomes, with the referees trading jerseys and stuff of the game. That's funny. But like I have enough, understanding of sports to know, like, they're not actively trying to help him. It's just the fact that he is the best quarterback. The best people have more attention on them. And, you're going to get those calls. I think my thing is I wish there was more consistency with it. Like, for example, the hit that Jared Goff took in that Detroit game or in that game against the Commanders during the pick six, where he gets just knocked out and literally knocked out of the game for a little bit. If that happened against Mahomes, that would have been a penalty and that would have taken that touchdown off the board. That would have changed the game. In my respect, I think so. Like the other stuff, like, like all quarterbacks get calls. If you getting close to their head, usually you're getting that call regardless of if it's legit or not. What are your thoughts on this about, and also the Mahomes kind of flopping at the sideline, which to me, like, it wasn't that much of a flop. Like I've watched it a couple times. I watched it live and like, I don't know. Like I think we try to like see stuff in slow motion. We try to like, add narrative to thing where it's like, it's just kind of happening really fast and it might look awkward when it's, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll start there with the flop. I think fundamentally, if we want to break it down in a technical sense, there is a difference between someone flopping and someone selling a call. Like I understand if people want to conflate those two things together, who cares? But like if I slightly bump into somebody and they fall and that's a flop. Yeah. Like your actions are not dictated by the actions that occur to you, right? Mahomes definitely sold the call. You want to call it a flop? Like I said, I don't care. He sold, getting pushed. He actually got pushed, and he sold, like, which happens literally in every sport. Every game you watch, somebody's selling a call. Wide receivers are acting like, they got their whole jersey got pulled out of it, out of their pants, right. On certain plays. Cornerbacks are selling a call. D linemen are selling a call. O linemen, everybody's selling a call in some shape, form, or fashion. The biggest issue for me and like the complaining about that is did a flag get thrown?
No, there was no foul.
So what are we talking about? Right? Ultimately, like the referees are doing what you want them to do, which is ignore the flag. Okay, he sold a call, he didn't get it, he got his ass up and he jogged back to the huddle like nothing happened. Like, so I don't understand like that's something that we can call that out in a moment and let's move on. So that's on that front. Mm-hmm. Two, on those two penalties, on the roughing the passer penalties, the late hit, all that. In real time, it looked like he got hit in the helmet both times.
Yeah.
And on the first one, the Will Anderson hit, like there is contact between Will Anderson's helmet and the front of Mahomes' face mask. By rule, that's a penalty. Like, and this was actually confirmed in New York at the time. And they came on Sunday NFL Countdown, and head of referees backed up both of those calls.
Yeah.
Were they bad calls? Yeah, sure. Like us people acting like in the moment as you watching that you felt like it was an egregious call. That's what that's a lie, because in the moment they look like penalties. And again, like you said, we're watching in slow motion after the fact, and referees just simply don't have that luxury. Hey, I complain when bad calls happen against my team. It happens, right? But good teams, great teams have to kind of plan for those things. It's like planning for traffic. Like, okay, Google Maps says I need to leave at 9:38 to get there for 10:45. You might want to leave a little bit earlier because it's Houston and there's traffic, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same way. Like a great team, you have to prepare for the fact, okay, some things are not going to go our way. How do we plan around that? Or how do we put ourselves in the best positions where those things don't have larger effects on the outcome of the game than we wanted to? So I'm not buying a lot of the complaining, especially since neither one of those calls really led to that much significant. Like, one turned into a first down, but like they weren't even in scoring position.
Yeah.
Like on the second one, I think it was like 2nd and 6. You know what I mean? Like it didn't have that big of an effect on the game for us to be talking about it. And lastly, as far as Jared Goff goes, good. Like, you haven't done enough, son, to get that call, man. And he played like ass. Like,
I mean, that was a pretty like blatant. Like he got knocked right in front of an official right there at
here's the
goal line. I mean, come on.
The casual fan, and I think I'm more than a casual fan.
Yeah.
But I'm still probably I'm the high end casual fan, I would say. Doesn't know that that's a flag, because like once you throw the pick, it seems like everybody's, fair game essentially. Like in the moment, I just thought, hey, he's blocking, and
it's just
Jared Goff is going to try to tackle him, and he's blocking for his his runner. So the fact that was a flag, like I don't think majority of fans are like, hey, there was something egregious happening there in the moment. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until they came in Brady and they were like, hey, that probably should have been a flag. Yeah. Oh well, I was like, don't throw the pick, my boy.
Yeah, no, I mean he played a bad game, no doubt about that. We'll talk about that in a second. I think I can understand, I can see people's frustration, but also, there's also like the understanding of time and place and when these things happened. Yeah. And if you want to have replay assists for every play, fine. I mean, the games are going to last a long time, but I mean, if that's the way to get things right, and that'll make people happier, then give it a shot. We'll see what happens. But yeah, you're right.
It won't make people happy.
Yeah. It's become such a sub story to the whole Chiefs season, and really last couple of years, that any kind of thing that happens, people are going to jump on it and go, well, look at that. So you see that that's the bias that the NFL is showing toward the Kansas City quarterback.
I don't know if we have time for like a mini rant, but like, because I try to understand that. Yeah. I know just we have this predilection in this country, in our sports community, that like when something or someone becomes too successful, that's the time to like tear it down.
Right.
like we don't know how in any realm, in any form of media, of sports, whatever, to like celebrate greatness. Like we don't even understand when we see it, but like that has been the narrative this whole season. It's so like I think we've also inundated people with so much information that now the thing is like point differential, right? Like point differential is an accurate measurement of who should win a game, who should win a championship, who
Right.
the best teams. But like we talk about that so much that it overshadows that the absolute best measure of who is the best team is who wins the game. Right now, we can like look through the nuance and context of a singular game and look at all the different ways, pros and cons of a team and why they win and, you know, how they come through in this moment, yada, yada. But like, that's simply too complex. And like most of us just want to watch the game and enjoy. And we look for like easy ways to explain why we're seeing, like, why does Detroit have the best record? Oh, they score way more points than their opponents. You know, especially relative to like other good teams, their point differential is higher than the Chiefs. I'm like, well, are they playing the same teams? Are they playing under the same conditions? You know, Is this quarterback having, you know, more amped to play this game because he's playing against the champs versus, you know, a team that's, you know, still trying to win their first, yada, yada. All these things are happening. And all these things lead into the referee things. Because like, if we can't fully with context and nuance explain why this team that doesn't look all that spectacular because of X, Y, and Z keeps winning, eventually it's like, man, it has to be some type of existential reason. And no, they have a really good defense. They have an offense that doesn't make mistakes, and they have the best quarterback in the game who makes all the big plays when they need to make. And that's the formula. Voila. Throw in some really good special teams and some calculated fourth down, you know, conversions, and there you go. 15 or now 16-2 team.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. One of the teams that beat them will be the team they'll face next week in the AFC Championship game. Let's get to that game. You know, last week we talked about this Baltimore Buffalo matchup, and you talked about how it was a high stakes game for Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, two quarterbacks, the two likely, you know, MVP candidates. And I don't know about you, Tristan, but watching this game, like, I mean, every game there's like pressure and you can kind of see it, you know, obviously. I mean, like in the Texans Chiefs game, the pressure's on the Chiefs. The Texans are playing with house money. If they win, it's amazing. It's the biggest win in franchise history. The Chiefs lose, it's a huge disappointment, right? So there's pressure in that way. But with the Buffalo Baltimore game, you had two teams that are they're going, I mean, they have the same goal and they're kind of on the same track, and it's this collision course. And I mean, and then with two quarterbacks kind of the same way. And watching this game, the whole game, I could just feel the pressure. I could feel like Tony Romo, like almost feeding into that as he's telling us what they should do in the next play. And Jim, you got to go for this. Like, I just felt the pressure for the 3.5 hours or 3 hours or whatever it was. Buffalo got the win, 27-25. Tristan, what are your thoughts on this game? Just the pressure of the game, because I felt like it was palpable.
There was pressure. There was, like you said, there's a different pressure than the Chiefs feel, because the pressure with the Chiefs is like to keep the thing going. Right. But it's not that initial pressure, which is the heaviest pressure of, can we do this? You know what I'm saying? Like, we feel like we can, you know, like you'll hear them saying like, we're confident in ourselves. We think we can go and do it. And like, but there's a difference between thinking you can do it and knowing that you can do it because you've done it. And then knowing that you can do it because you've done it over and over and over again. There's a big difference in like trying to figure out the perfect formula for doing it and then executing it. So, and it's amplified because this wasn't Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. This wasn't Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. This is, hey, can I get past this guy just in order to get to the next guy that I have to get past? Like, that's a huge amount of pressure on both of those guys and both of those teams as a whole. Because like you said at the beginning, like, windows don't last forever. Now, it's different because those two guys are so great that you can essentially attach a window to them. But that window, even if it's open, it's narrower. You know what I'm saying? Like, the circumstances that you need to be successful change. Like one year it could be, hey, offense is spectacular. We, top 3 in points, yada yada. But the defense is horrible. Ask Joe Burrow. Some years you can't overcome that. Like you just don't get the breaks. And some years it's, hey, we had to make these moves on offense to like maximize the defense, and got to make something happen more often than not. In order to get to 10 wins, 11 wins. That's essentially the Chiefs. And that's what with Josh Allen essentially has had to be, like just a little bit more efficient to make up for the lack of obvious explosive ability on offense. So you throw in all these things into the pot, man. You add like just 2 rabid fan bases who are starving to break through. The All-Pro voting, the likely MVP voting, a little bit of racial tension. Like this is a huge game, man. You could feel it just watching it. You could like the crowd seemed nervous. Just they jumped on literally every single thing that happened. But overall, it was a great game. We could talk about like a lot of the ins and outs and a lot of the conversation that's happened after it.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a really, really compelling game. I don't think this was like an A+ game as far as like the quality. This wasn't like the 13-second game or something like that, or Matt Stafford and the 49ers. Like this, the Rams 49ers from a few years ago. Right. But this was just a really, really good game with high stakes that had some. It was a roller coaster in certain ends, and it came all the way down to the end. Some spectacular plays, and that's really all you can ask for. Like we're going to talk about this game for a long time.
Yeah, no, you're right. It wasn't like the most technically like sound game, but it was a good game. And like I said, the pressure really kind of added to that. I thought Romo was great at the end of the game. He was saying, this game feels like the biggest game. He's like, next week is going to be even bigger for one of these teams, and that's perfectly encapsulated kind of what's going on with the AFC. Like all these games, except for the Texans, by the way, the Texans did not turn the ball over. All the teams that lost in round 2 had more turnovers than the opponent. And that's really what it came down to for the Ravens. They had some, timely mistakes. You had, Lamar had a fumble in the game. Mark Andrews had a fumble in the game. Mark Andrews dropped a 2-point conversion that could have tied the game. Lamar threw a pick. And that's really the difference because Buffalo didn't do a ton in this game. I mean, you look at the stats, like Josh Allen, 127 yards passing. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns, and they're both short, a little like kind of tush push kind of quarterback draw touchdowns. And it really came down to just who could protect the ball better, and Buffalo got it done at home.
Yeah, like these type of games are, I guess, my new measuring stick for like how I judge how people see sports in general. Like, you could narrow it to like football, basketball, but like, how do you see sports in general? Like, if you walk away from this game thinking because Lamar Jackson, passed for 270 yards, he had made some spectacular plays, threw a couple touchdowns, some good runs, good scrambles, because they didn't call any runs for him actually. Yeah. If you walk away saying that you could say that he played better statistically. You cannot say that he did more to help his team win than Josh Allen. Josh Allen was whatever he needed to be for the team to win. And I've come to realize that. Now, 10 years ago, I would have argued you down and said, hey, Lamar outperformed him. Damn what happened in the first half. Look how he responded in the second half. But, like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I deal with, like, kids on a day-to-day basis that you can kind of relate everything to that. Like, let's say in the first half of the semester, the semester's broken down into two 9-week cycles. Yeah. In the first 9 weeks, you had a 73, right? You didn't turn in enough of your work. You failed a few tests here and there. Didn't really fully make up the things that you didn't do well. You got a 73. Second half of the semester, you get it together and say, hey, I want an A+. I'm going to grind. You come out with a 90. Guess what that averages out to? Like, you can't at the end say, hey, I had an A+ semester because I got an A+ in semester 2. Yeah. No, that first half counts. right? Statistically, like this, we're essentially talking about a math game. These possessions are not infinite. You only have but so many possessions to have positive plays.
Yeah.
It's just possession after possession. Can you get enough positive plays to put points on the board and stop the other team from doing the same thing? And in the first half, the Baltimore Ravens had too many negative plays. It got them down 11 on the road in a hostile environment with bad weather. All these, without your first, your best receiver, like all these things against you, and those turnovers put you in a deficit that you had to work extra hard to overcome in the second half. And kudos, Lamar and the offense played much better, outside of the Mark Andrews drop and taking a sack, in the scoring position.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like the offense looked really good. It didn't look dominant, because if it was dominant, they could have easily overcome. Not easily, but they would have definitely overcome that 11-point lead. They just weren't able to do it. And yeah, we could talk about Mark Andrews' drop at the end, but why are you in that position? Like, it all comes down to that. And I'm not putting all this on Lamar. I'm not. Like I said, I think it's great that he responded in the second half. Drops happen, fumbles happen.
Yeah.
This is a unlucky thing. This is an oblong shaped object. Like the ball's going to hit the ground. But you also got to think about, okay, for that drop, yes, that's Mark Andrews' fault. For that fumble, that's Mark Andrews' fault. Overall, we're looking at the offense. Did the offense play well enough to win? And no, it's because of those first half turnovers. And it's patronizing to like try to amplify Lamar's performance because of what happened in the second half while ignoring the first, because amongst these elite teams, especially in the AFC, every single possession matters. Field position matters.
Yeah.
Every turnover matters. Every time you get into the red zone and you don't get a touchdown, all those things matter because these possessions are not infinite.
Yeah. No, well said. Yeah, well said. So the Bills got the passing grade in this game, but now they're on to the final test. Can they pass that one? Because that's the one that they hadn't been able to get over that hurdle with the Chiefs. They've played. What will this be the fourth time they played in the playoffs?
Fourth time, yeah.
Fourth time, yeah. They played the AFC title game once before.
Yep.
So yeah. So what do you see? Obviously, I mean, you're a Chiefs guy. This is the one team that really. I mean, let's be honest. Like the Chiefs lost 2 games on paper this year, but the Denver game doesn't really count. They didn't really put out much of an effort to try to win that game. The Bills, the only team to beat them this year. They beat them in Buffalo. This game will be in Kansas City. How do you see the AFC title game going? Given, again, Buffalo, they're trying to get where the Chiefs are. The Chiefs are trying to do something no one's ever done before and get to the 3rd straight Super Bowl.
Yeah, this is, again, we just talked about the magnitude of Bills Ravens, and you could pretty much multiply that by 2. Again, it's Chiefs going for history, the Bills trying to simultaneously create their own history while also stopping history at the same time. This is shaping up to be like one of those, maybe not even maybe, bro, like one of the biggest moments in NFL history.
Yeah.
Like we have a team going for a 3-peat, 4 and 6 years.
Right.
And we have a team, another franchise that is known for heartbreak. With this quarterback that nobody thought was going to be good after his first couple of years, who turned himself into an elite, one of the 2 to 3 best quarterbacks on the planet.
Yeah.
There's so much weight behind both of these franchises and what they mean to these cities, to the NFL as a whole. And then that's before we start talking about the actual quarterbacks. And one of them is already enshrined, as one of the greatest, but like winning this game and then winning in 2 weeks puts him in like rarefied air,
Yeah.
And then we have Josh Allen, who can put himself in that conversation. Like if he wins MVP and wins the Super Bowl, and I do think the winner of this game is winning the Super Bowl, regardless. He's able to do that, man. Like you absolutely have to put him in the conversation. Like, I don't think you can say he is the best quarterback in the game, but like he has to be at least in a conversation. It's not, hey, Pat Mahomes and we can't even consider nobody else. It's Patrick Mahomes, and then, hey, you got to put Josh right there, 1B or 2A, whatever. But he puts himself in a higher position, as is. So huge game. I see the Chiefs winning that by 3. It might even be an overtime game. Like, this was destined to be one of those games where my heart rate just spikes to uncontrollable levels. Like, the Chiefs don't play easy games, you know what I'm saying? Especially against an opponent who I think is the second best team in the league, who play, just a horrible matchup for us as far as controlling their running game, controlling Josh with his scramble game. Like, we were able to get them in a lot of 3rd and longs, 2nd and longs, in the divisional round last year, which kind of negated those Josh Allen scrambles that he usually does to pick up first downs. But we were only able to get just enough. Like, it wasn't something that was like an A+ thing on. So Josh Allen worries me, like I said, more than any quarterback in the league. I do think there's some subtle differences between week 11 and now. Amenahu, Pacheco, Jalen Watson, like, there's a horde of guys who weren't playing, who will be playing, and who will be playing prominent roles for the Chiefs. I do think both Andy Reid and Spags held a lot back. Like, they had Drew Tranquil in like deep coverage. You know what I'm saying? Like, Drew Tranquil, that's not his specialty. Like, he is intermediate blitz guy. He is not playing in deep coverage against wide receivers. So I do have the Chiefs winning a close one. Be honest though, I could see the Bills coming in and upsetting. I feel like chemistry wise, they're just that good. Like, it may not show on like paper with some of the names, but like, those dudes play off Josh Allen really well. Their offensive line is amazing. And they run the ball really, really well. I do think we can challenge their corners better than we did the Texans. So Kelsey may not have as big a game, but I definitely see more hop targets, a lot more Xavier Worthy, a lot more Hollywood Brown, in underneath routes, yards after catch. So I see the Chiefs in a close one. Hopefully, man. I need it.
Yeah, and if the Chiefs do it, they'll be the first team going for the three-peat to get this far, because the previous 3 teams, the Niners, the Cowboys, and the Steelers of the 70s, all 3 of those teams lost in the conference championship game. So the Chiefs win this game, and they would go further than anyone in their pursuit of 3 straight Super Bowls. I think what you said before about the Ravens-Bills game, like, this will not be a stats game. I mean, this will be like the winning quarterback. Maybe he'll have 200 yards passing. Maybe it's going to be dictated by, like, every possession is going to matter. The score is going to dictate the game, just like it did. And that sounds kind of remedial, but like, that's what happened in that Buffalo-Baltimore game, because there was a point where Buffalo went up by 11, I believe. And that really impacted how they were going to play the rest of the game. They're trying to limit possessions and, keep Lamar, where he can't score, where he's got to score quickly, and they're going to run as much clock and run the ball. And it just changes the way you play the game. So I see this game being very similar. I think this is going to be a very close game. This is probably going to be like a field goal. It could be an overtime game. And it's, this is what the NFL is all about. This is kind of like the marquee matchup for the league right now. Games at 5:30 on CBS on Sunday. So the AFC title. Go ahead.
I do think the Chiefs are going to have their best offensive game of the season.
Okay.
I firmly believe that. Like, I absolutely believe that.
Yeah. We shall see.
I have that notion. I just feel like, again,
you think they're due? Maybe.
You say what?
You think they're due for like a big, or like for a more complete game?
Yeah, like
offense.
I think at full strength they look exactly like they looked against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of hoping that they give DJ Humphries a shot to start at left tackle, so you can move Tooney back over to the guard position, just to get the run game moving a little bit more, because you're going to need to control clock. And man, if the protection is right, like I said, we can challenge those corners. Their linebackers don't cover well on tight ends. Like we could do something to that defense. You know, it just if we can keep ourselves in good enough positions to where Andy's going to continue to be aggressive in the play calling, then I think they could put up some points. Like maybe a good 35 plus. And man, if we can get out to a good lead, man, like that really damages a lot what Buffalo wants to do, take away the threat of that run. But man, Buffalo's dangerous. Like I'm very confident. Like I feel like I'm more confident going into this week than I was against the Texans because I could see so much like minor stuff going wrong. Yeah. Like the pass rush is, getting to Mahomes a little bit too much. Our receivers not being able to win one-on-ones and like having to rely on the tight ends. And the irony is that was, the strategy going into the game. But I'm more confident. Like I feel like I accept that Buffalo's good enough to win this game. But I also feel like everything the Chiefs have been doing, all these close score games, they battling through the injuries, everything has built up really to this game, honestly, to just have the answers for like every question, on the test. And I feel like finally we have the answers to all these tests, and Sunday is the test. Like there's a bigger test, but I feel like we're way more prepared for the bigger tests than we are for this one. So
yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. This is going to be the toughest test. So we shall see. Sunday, CBS, 5:30, the AFC Championship game. Let's go to the NFC. Let's talk about that because on Saturday night we had one of the. I mean, I honestly, is this one of the biggest upsets in the playoff history? Because you had the number 1 seeded Lions going down by 2 touchdowns to the Commanders, 45-31. Jayden Daniels, 99 yards passing, 2 TDs. He also had 50-something yards rushing. First of all, is this one of the biggest upsets that you can remember? Second question, is Jayden Daniels the best rookie quarterback we've ever seen? I know there's a lot of like hyperbole with those questions, but like I really like both those questions. I'm like, that may be the answer because this is some really heady stuff that we saw on Saturday.
Well, I think still, if we're just judging it based on like point spread, I think it's still the Giants and the Patriots in 07. That still might be like statistically.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about the Super Bowl, but yeah, I guess that obviously was a major upset.
Like statistically, I do think this is the biggest upset of just like the quality of teams from like what we've seen for all year. Like with the Commanders, did they have a good enough defense to even be competitive in the playoffs? Like they should have been lucky to win one game with the average defense at best. Coming in with a rookie quarterback, could he play in that environment? Could he thrive in that environment on the road against the Super Bowl favorite for the majority of the season? And they went in there and they looked like they knew exactly what they wanted to do on every possession. They executed it. And to answer your second question, I think Jayden Daniels kind of by far is the best rookie quarterback that we've seen. It's not just like, it's not just I've talked about it. It's not just the spectacular with Jayden Daniels. He does the ordinary stuff. Yeah. Consistently. Like everybody talks about like mentally he looks like a second, third, fourth year player. Yeah. It's like all that experience plus the spectacular. The cerebralness, like all these things together like make him, he looks like a top 5 quarterback right now. And that we talked about, like that 5th spot on the quarterback list is kind of up for grabs. Like there's a lot of names you could plug in there. But man, obviously we have to see how he replicates this next year and going forward. But yeah, man, just the poise, the late game situations. He's played in some. I talked about this. I feel like having those reps of playing in big games, even if it's just like a big regular season game, playing in close games, coming through in those situations, like it just kind of further primes him for bigger success because like you've seen it. You've seen yourself come through. You know you can do it, and it's just playing free and letting it rip. And man, brother, I went and started a franchise on Madden with the Commanders. Like, that's how excited I was watching them play.
It was impressive. I mean, they had a big second quarter. They got 28 points in the second quarter. They obviously benefited in the game from Jared Goff, who did not play well. 3 picks, including a pick 6 where he got knocked out on. He also had a fumble. They also had a trick play with Jameson Williams throwing an INT late in the game, which I just that was so bad.
It was okay. We got to break that down. It's not that the play call was drawn up. First bad mistake.
Yeah.
It's not even just the player that you chose. Like,
right.
A guy known for just horrible decisions, Jameson Williams. Yeah. Like, just impulsive. Like, you thought George Pickens was bad. I think Jameson Williams might be worse. Like, he tried like a Pretty Ricky, like, on stage touchdown celebration. Like, they will find you, son. Like, his own teammates were trying to get him off the ground and stop doing this shit.
Right.
So it's not like that he chose Jameson Williams. And by he, I mean Ben Johnson.
Right.
New Bears coach.
Right.
It's that Jameson Williams not only threw to a receiver that was covered, it's not even just that he threw off his back foot. Let me tell you what I noticed rewatching this play this morning. And it hit me. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock. I was watching Get Up or something like that. I noticed all these bad decisions happening. And the final thing, Justin, he tried to throw a back shoulder fade off his back foot as a wide receiver to a cover play. Like, everything about that was a horrible decision. Yeah. And like Jameson Williams only magnified that, like a back shoulder throw off your back foot, and he underthrew it.
Yeah,
and it didn't go to the back shoulder. Like that, I don't know. That was unconscionable.
Yeah, in a moment where I think that the point they were down by 10, I think it feels like they were kind of like down by 10 most of the game. That was such a huge play. Like I just. They had so many chances, and I mean, this was a wild. Speaking of Madden, this was almost like a video game. This game, the way it kind of played out for parts of it. But let's talk about the NFC North, because that division put 3 teams in the playoffs. You had the 15-2 Lions, the 14-3 Vikings, and then you had the 11-6 Green Bay Packers. Then you also had the Bears, who were terrible. But all combined, that division won 45 games this season, went 0-3 in the playoffs. Now, is this just a thing where this is just football, or is this like it almost was like the SEC kind of like puffing their chest out and then getting blown out in every bowl game? Because all 3 of these teams went home, and this was the best division in football by far, and they don't have much to show for it heading into the title game.
We were so right about this division, while also being so wrong about this division. Like, we knew that every team in that division had the potential to be good. We knew there would be 3 playoff teams. We were right. Hell, even Chicago was 4-2 at a position, point.
Yeah.
The thing that damned all 3 of those teams were they had obvious flaws or semi-obvious flaws, or just things going into the playoffs that you knew could trip them up. Some of these things we've talked about all year. Sam Darnold, what's the ceiling on a team led by Sam Darnold? Even with that wide receiver and tight end talent, and just skill position talent. With Green Bay, has Jordan Love matured enough as a quarterback and as a leader of that offense for them to beat good teams? They struggled beating good teams all year. I think they went 1-5, 1-6 against playoff teams. Like, we knew this was something that could come up, in January. With Detroit, it was a mixture of same thing. It's a higher end version of what we asked about Sam Darnold. What's the ceiling on the Jared Goff offense, especially when any bad things start happening, turnovers start happening, the defense isn't putting you in good positions. Mm-hmm. Pressure is getting to you. Like, what happens? What's the ceiling on a Jared Goff-led team? And then, the ravishing of their defense from the injuries, we knew that was something that could trip them up. So you're not surprised by any one of them losing. And I think that's the bigger thing. Like Detroit lost, but like a lot of people had the feeling of, if Washington can put a few points on the board, they have a real shot. Like it's probably not likely, but they have a real shot, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it did. And now we're moving on. We're gonna have an all NFC East title game, which after talking about the North all year long and talking about how great it is to have the NFC East be the final two teams in the NFC seems unlikely, but that's what we're gonna get because the Eagles beat the Rams. Yeah, the Eagles beat the Rams 28-22 in the snow. Saquon Barkley had another huge game. The Eagles rushed for 285 yards, 205 of which were Barkley. He had a 62-yard TD run, a 78-yard TD run. Jalen Hurts also had a 44-yard TD run. So the Eagles benefited from big plays and from a Rams team that just turned the ball over a couple too many times. And it was a pretty entertaining game, but it looked like it was definitely the Eagles to lose, and they did not.
Yeah, I will. Okay, we'll get to the ending, but the Eagles, they like you said, they dominated this up front. That probably the best offensive line between them and Buffalo.
Yeah.
With Baltimore and Kansas City, I was like right there to round out their top four. I think so many things about this game. At one end, it demonstrated the Eagles' potential for like at least NFC dominance. Like I said, the run game was on point. I think the defense came through in the biggest moments. Shut the Rams down in the first half, and then they did just enough at the end to hold them. Obviously, you can make the argument that weather played had a big role in the defense being able to stop the Rams at the end, but ultimately, like it looked like a SEC team was playing a Big Ten team, like at various points. Like the Eagles were faster to the ball. They won a lot in like one-on-one situations at DBs against the receivers. They look like the stout defense that we thought they were coming into the playoffs.
Yeah.
With that said, I walked away from that game feeling like if one or two things don't go the Eagles' way, the Rams easily would have won that. For instance, we get to that last drive. The last two drives by Matt Stafford and the Rams and that offense were stellar. Like I was thinking they would like kind of open it up a little bit and speed up the game more to offset that rush in the first half, and they just didn't. But those last two when they absolutely needed it, Stafford drove them down, got a touchdown. He should have got him that last touchdown, but Jalen Carter only we say he beat him. Like I think that offensive lineman just blocked the wrong way. Like he looked the wrong way, and Jalen Carter had a clear path in the middle, and he got to Stafford before he can get that ball off because the tight end Higsby, he was wide open. Yeah. He would have walked into the end zone. And I put in the group chat before that drive, I said, hey, man, if Stafford gets 7 here, this game is over. Because I don't think Jalen Hurts, and this gets me to the larger point with the Eagles.
Yeah.
I don't have any faith. I did not have any faith that Jalen Hurts was going to drive the Eagles down with a minute. It was about a minute 22 when they got to the fourth down, essentially with a minute left. I didn't think that Jalen Hurts had it in him, especially with the injury that he suffered, to drive them down to win that game or at least tie it. So Rams had a golden opportunity. Things went against them. Same thing we said about, the Ravens, really. Like, I think there were parts of that game where the Rams would have looked like the better team. But they turned the ball over. Weather be damn. And they could not stop the Eagles' running game. And that essentially was the game right there. It was a Saquon Barkley game, just like it was a Travis Kelce game. When nothing else kind of was going on, when everything else was shut down, they at least had like that elite player who could step up and kind of carry the torch. And that's what Saquon did because he was spectacular.
Yeah, 2 massive runs. I know they don't give the MVP to running backs, but like, or very rarely do they do that. But like, I think he's got a really strong case, and I really wish they would have let him play that final week of the season and had a chance to get that record because I don't know. He may never have another shot at that. He might get hurt, 1 year and have 1,300 yards after 14 weeks or something, and then not have a chance. And I always like when they let players pursue those levels of excellence, and I think he's definitely worthy of that. But I got to say, like Sunday when the Commanders take on the Eagles, I am rooting for the Commanders for just aesthetic reasons. I'd rather watch the Commanders play in the Super Bowl than I would the Eagles. Um, let's get to that matchup. So 2:00 on Fox Sunday. You got the Commanders at the Eagles, NFC Championship game. These two teams, of course, same division. They met twice this year. Both games very competitive. Eagles won 26-18 in week 11. The Commanders won 36-33 in week 16. Tristan, how do you see this game playing out?
Well, I'm assuming the Chiefs win. I'm rooting for the Commanders as well. Sorry. I love you, Jayden. I think your team would be kind of food against the Chiefs. It would be entertaining,
Yeah.
but I definitely think that we would win that, like kind of going away. If the Bills win, then I'm rooting for the Eagles to win because I think that would be a better Super Bowl to watch. How do I see that going? Whew. Can the Commanders do something with the Eagles' run game? Can they force Jalen Hurts to make contested throws, even some all-pro level receivers? Can he force Jalen Hurts to win that game? Can they force Jalen Hurts to like step up and be the main reason why the Eagles win a game on Sunday? And if they can do that, they have a shot because I think you're going to see a lot more design runs for Jayden Daniels to kind of offset their rush, to kind of get the Eagles to commit more guys to the box to stop him. Give his receivers, more opportunities to win some matchups downfield. But I'm not betting against Jayden Daniels. I think he's capable of rising to the occasion. I saw him make some throws, man, against Detroit. Like that deep pass he threw to Brown.
Right.
Brown essentially got hit in the face mask, and all he had to do was keep his hands out because that ball dropped directly into the bucket. Yeah. Like he made some plays, especially in that second half when Detroit was trying to make a rally. Like he made some throws, some big boy throws. So I think he can. I think he'll obviously have a tougher time against the Eagles in that secondary. But I see him making enough plays to keep it close. But ultimately, if the Eagles get a lead, I can see them leaning on their running game to like seal the game and like really keep the ball out of it. Jayden Daniels might be in like let's keep the ball out of his hands territory.
Right.
As a rookie. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I haven't been in a situation where I rooted against him yet in a game. So I don't know what it feels like to be like, oh, they're down 5 with a minute 20 left on the clock. Like, do I have faith in him? Like, I'm rooting for him to do it, but also have confidence he can do it. So I'm assuming rooting against him has the opposite effect. But like, he may be in that territory of let's shorten the game, so we can keep the ball out of his hands because he can kill you. But I have the Eagles winning in a close one.
Got the Eagles. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think like you said, you haven't had a chance to root against him, but we have seen him in a lot of big moments. You talked about the regular season. I think it was week 17, the Sunday night game against the Falcons. That was kind of a, you got to win. Yeah. That's a playoff game. He played pretty well in that game against Tampa Bay, played pretty well in that game, in a game that was, kind of, it was a close game throughout. And then obviously what happened with the Detroit against the Lions in the divisional round. He's one of those players where if it's like 3rd and 4, you're like, he's gonna get it. Like, I mean, whether it's with his legs or his arm, like he's pretty, like if you're rooting against him, you're like, man, we can't let this be like a 4th and short because they're gonna go for it. Like, how you want teams to like punt when it's like if it's your team, you're like, oh, 4th and 1, we should go for it. But if it's the other team, you're like, oh no, please punt us the ball because you're probably gonna go for it and get it, and we're not gonna get the ball back. he's like to that level right now where it seems like he can just kind of do no wrong. And
I mean, his numbers against the blitz are scary.
yeah,
Like completely scary.
he's not rattled at all. Like it's so crazy. Like I know like some people can kind of play up that kind of stuff and like maybe act their way, but like that's just kind of who he is. Like he
You
doesn't seem
see it.
phased. Yeah,
It pops on the screen. Like it
right.
pops. Like I'm seeing Detroit, because they're just getting gashed. Like he's getting
Yeah,
whatever he wants to. So they start bringing 5. Okay, cool. He knows what it's like. He knows where where the ball should go before pre-snap, and he gets it out every
yeah,
single time. And that could be on a 5-yard out. That could be on a 10-yard slant. That could be on a 30-yard bomb down the field. Like he has confidence that he can make all of those throws.
yeah,
He throws one of the best deep balls in the game already as a rookie, accurate as hell in the intermediate and the short. Like he doesn't. My biggest thing with him is like sometimes like get out of bounds, bro. Get down. Like he
yeah.
takes some hits that he shouldn't take. But like that's my only. It's the only complaint I have. Like I'm again, if it shakes out, it's Chiefs Commanders in New Orleans. Saying like I have the same worries that I have about Josh Allen. It's like
Yeah.
we got to keep it, like you said, any third and short, you just kind of have to assume that they're going to pick it up. Like you have to get them in 3rd and 9 and above, really. Even then, I'm not too comfortable. It has to be 3rd and 15 for me to be like, okay, we got this. But like that's what level he's on. Like we just got to keep the ball out of his hands, one, and then keep him out of situations where you have to guess. Like, is he gonna run it? Is he gonna throw it? Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. They have a great scheme, and they have a great scheme, and he's the maestro that runs the whole show. So, I mean, and if you're like from the Eagles' perspective, it's like, yeah, like okay, you're facing a division rival, a team you know really well, but it's also like you're the favorite, you're going to be at home, and you're facing a guy that you're going to be playing, for the next 10 years, and the Commanders are having a moment. This team has not been this far in the playoffs in like 33 years. So like this is uncharted territory basically for most of this fan base, for 30 something years. So,
Sucks to be a Cowboys fan, bro. Oh my God.
I saw that the Cowboys, they're like the only team in the NFC that hasn't been to the NFC title game since like 20. I mean, they haven't been back since 1996, but every other team has been in the title game since like 2009 or something, some crazy number.
Yeah.
And it's like
every single one.
That is insane. When you compare how much the Cowboys are talked about, like relative to most of the teams in the NFL, but most of the teams in the NFC, pretty crazy how that's played out over the years. The Cowboys are still looking for a coach. However, the Bears found one. They stayed in division to get Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. He's the new head coach for the Bears. He was introduced today. Tristan, what do you think about this hiring? Do you think he'll be the guy to kind of steer Caleb in the right direction?
I mean, I know he has a deep bag of plays, which is cool. As far as I hope he's not the guy. Like again, you're head coach. You're not offensive coordinator. You're not QB coach. You're not passing game coordinator. You're head coach of like the whole team. And I guess that's always the risk when you bring in an OC is bringing them in for like one specific thing when like their job encompasses 85 different things a day. So that part I would be a little bit worried about. But it all depends on who he's bringing. Like who's your DC? Mm-hmm. Who's the person that you're putting in to deal with Caleb on a day-to-day basis? Where you can't always get over there and work with him one-on-one. So who's taking that role? Like I think all those things are important. Who's your O-line coach? Because that might be the first thing I think about.
Yeah.
I think those things are more important. And we'll find out what Ben Johnson is. Can you lead an entire group? Can you keep your pulse on what the team needs, offense and defense and special teams? And if you're there just for Caleb, like I don't think this is something that's going to work out long term. which is I would have liked for them to like get a defensive guy. Like Brian Flores would have been, on top of my list. Aaron Glenn would have been top of my list. And then that allows me to bring in, an OC with a philosophy that can live on past that OC, even if they get another job.
Right.
So it's continuity. I think that's the most important thing. So I think ultimately it should be a good hire, but we'll see, with the rest of see how the staff plays out at least.
Yeah. I mean, I get from the Bears' perspective, like you had Eberflus, that he was a defensive guy. So, like, usually you fire a coach who's a defensive guy, you want to get an offensive guy. I get that. From Ben Johnson's perspective, last year he was like the hot coordinator name, and he decided to stay with the Lions. And one of the jobs he turned down was the Commanders, which is interesting given what happened with the Lions. But you feel like he had to take a job this offseason, right? Or otherwise, like next year, who knows what happens with the Lions? Obviously, I mean, it's not likely they're going to go 15-2 next year. They're probably going to take a step back a little bit. You wonder, obviously, if you have a big injury on the offensive side of the ball, maybe Goff goes down or something, then you're looking at a 7 or 8 win team or less. So from his perspective, I feel like it was probably the right decision.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then also with Eberflus, like Eberflus was a defensive guy. He also just wasn't a good coach.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So that kind of held him back.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see how the Bears fare next year with their new coach. There's still 5 jobs open in the NFL. We'll probably talk about that a little bit more next week when we do our breakdowns of the conference championship games. But moving on to the college game, last night we watched the college football playoff title game, the national title game. That is, Ohio State got the win, 34-23 over Notre Dame. It was a game that Notre Dame got the first score, long drive, and you're like, oh, this might be a game. This might be a really good game. Then Ohio State rattled off 31 straight points. To Notre Dame's credit, they fought back and got it to where they were only down by 8, but Ohio State put it away with a late field goal to win the game. What'd you think about this one?
Man, on Twitter they were talking about that first drive like it was Elway and the Browns. 'Cause I missed. For some reason, I thought the game started at 7:30, so I tuned in late because I was watching some other game. So I went and rewatched the first drive. Great drive. I mean, multiple fourth downs. They controlled the line of scrimmage, ran the ball really well, and like you said, after that, it looked like an Ohio State team against Notre Dame. That's how really these games have looked for the last 20 years. Like it is a difference in talent, like high-end talent.
Tremendous.
Especially on the offensive end that you can see pretty clearly. I think Notre Dame has like 1 or 2 guys who I think could be first-round picks. Their safety, I forgot his name, but he's pretty good. They have some guys, but like offensively, you just don't have enough dynamic guys to score consistently. With that said, I thought Riley Leonard, when they needed, especially at the end, when they were trying to make their comeback, he made some like really big boy throws that I hadn't even really seen him attempt this year. And he kind of stepped out of his comfort zone and stayed in the pocket and threw the ball downfield. It was pretty accurate in a lot of those throws, especially that touchdown to put him down with 8, something like that. But Ohio State they just had too much, man. Like Jeremiah Smith should be in the NFL, like as recently as next year. Like he's just that good. And Will Howard, I don't think the stats prove it, but I think he played the best game I've seen him play in Ohio State this year. Again, he super accurate in the first half. I don't think he missed a pass.
Yeah, he was 12 for 12.
12 for 12, in the first half. But he just made big play after big play with his legs, with his arm, throwing the ball downfield. Found guys in the zone. Man, I thought he played his most composed game that I've seen all year, at least since he was at Kansas State. So, man, he just got a recipe of disaster for Notre Dame. I credit them for getting back in that game late and making it semi-competitive, but ultimately that game showed – a lot of people say it showed why Ryan Day still should get fired, because a team that talented should not have lost to Oregon and Michigan, especially this Michigan team.
Yeah.
Which is wild. But yeah, man, this is a super talented team, and they came through at the end because I surely lost faith in them throughout the regular season.
Mhm. Yeah, not only super talented, but super young. Like a lot of their big stars will be back next year. The quarterback, he won't be back. And you mentioned Will Howard a little bit. He played, like you said, one of his best games, if not his best game of his career. And we've talked about the quarterback class for the draft, and it's probably the weakest it's been in a while. Do you see Will Howard maybe jumping in there and being like maybe the third quarterback taken, or maybe he's in the conversation with Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders? Like, because after that, there's a lot of names we could talk about, but I don't know. Like, I feel like Will Howard is better than the Texas kid that committed to the draft recently. We'll talk about him too. But
Yeah, I definitely think Will Howard's better than Quinn Ewers.
yeah,
I From what I saw last night, like it made me way more optimistic and higher on him. Again, not a quarterback expert. I'm much more prone to look at what you did in a big game than what you did against Purdue in in October. So I saw a lot of things that I liked in my limited kind of expertise on watching quarterbacks and projecting out how good they'll be. There's things that I just saw. Like I saw pocket presence. I saw him make throws out of script. I saw him make throws on the run, getting out of the pocket. These are things that I'm personally looking for. Obviously, he could use his legs really well. He's done that his whole college career. I saw some things like, okay, if a team took him late in the first or early second, like I would feel pretty optimistic about that. Maybe he has a Bo Nix run between now and in April, and works his way into like the top 20. Who knows? Like I said, like there's no Cam Ward is probably the quarterback I have the most faith in from what I've seen. So everything after that is a toss up, man. You could tell me Will Howard is the second quarterback off the board, and I'd be like, cool. Like you could tell me Shedeur Sanders is a third round pick, and I'd be like, I can see that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's a big variance with these quarterbacks from top to bottom. So opportunities there for Will Howard. I think he played him. I think he definitely raised his stock last night.
Yeah.
By how much we'll see.
Yeah, no, it's a total toss up. The draft always is, but this year with the quarterback class, it's really anybody's game. Last thing we'll talk about, I mentioned it briefly a second ago, Quinn Ewers. So he is entered the NFL draft, and he reportedly turned down a rumored $8 million deal to stay in college. So my question for you, Tristan, is do you think he should have taken that money and gone to play wherever that was? Because we don't know which school offered him that, or do you think he's making the right choice leaving after 3 years at Texas and trying to shot in the NFL?
So I'm torn on this because on the logical side says that he made a poor decision because I don't even think he's a third round guy. If he goes in the third round, cool. Like I don't know how to properly measure that, So if you're not a first or second round pick to me, you might as well be third, fourth, fifth, sixth. It's all the same to me. On the flip side, I think Quinn Ewers, regardless of how long he stays in college, is a career backup in the NFL.
Yeah.
For however long he's there. Like I don't think he ever is
if that.
Yeah. If that. I don't think he's ever a consistent starter. I just don't see it. I'd love to be wrong about that. So a career backup can make some money.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Chase Daniels co-hosts several shows, off the fact of being a career backup.
Yeah.
Like that's essentially what he was known for. You could be smart backup guy, man. There's a lot of money in that. So I definitely think it's more of a long-term investment declaring for the draft because all he really needs is a team to like him enough that he can stick, and maybe he's that quarterback that you always threaten, like, hey, let's maybe go to Ewers when the actual starting quarterback is like the perfect place for Quinn Ewers, the Colts. Like I would try my best to get to the Indianapolis Colts. Like he will always be the Cody Carlson to be like, hey, this quarter, if he's acting up, he's not doing like we always got Ewers. We can go to him. Let's see what we got in Ewers. So I think there's $8 million. I think is a more short term thing where in this quarterback world you can make a lot more just being a almost threat to take somebody's job.
Mm-hmm. No, good point on the financials. I just the thing is like he could take that deal and then maybe enter the draft next year. Now maybe the draft is tougher the following. Honestly, right now I couldn't name who's the hot quarterback for the 2026 draft, but I just with Ewers, like you're talking about, maybe he'll be a 3rd round pick. Man, if I'm a team, obviously first 2 rounds, those should be star players in the draft. If you're drafting, those should be stars to starter kind of like 10-year guys, right?
Yeah.
The 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, those should be starters on your team or like very high level contributing players. I just don't see him being one of those players for a while. So like I mean, he'll probably get drafted, but like he might be a day 3 guy, honestly. Even though he's was highly recruited, went to Texas, had a lot of success at Texas, obviously not in the biggest moments, but I just don't see it from him. I don't see the like the pocket presence, the reaction, like just stepping into sacks and not having trouble with Georgia and um Ohio State. Obviously, those are 2 the biggest programs in the country, but like the NFL, all those guys are really good. So
Yeah.
I just don't really see it right now. I didn't see the arm talent, didn't see the arm strength really since he lost all the weight after his first year at Texas. Maybe I'm going to be totally wrong. Maybe he's going to be like, one of the great quarterbacks of the future, but right now I just don't see it.
You're not wrong. Like he's a fifth round to undrafted. Like, that's the range I have him in as of today. Right. We'll see what happens after the combine. I don't see him getting any higher than late 4th, early 5th.
Yeah, I agree. I just 5th round pick, that's so valuable. Like you take some linebacker who could like make some huge play, make some huge tackle that helps you advance in the playoffs or something. So
man, the Eagles got the left tackle of the future in the 7th round,
so, yeah, you never know. You never know. And again, he could prove me totally wrong, but
probably
we'll see how that goes. Yeah, probably not. We'll see how it goes.
Sometimes the haters are correct.
Yeah, there you go. Anything else before we get out of here? You want anything we didn't get to that you want to talk about?
I mean, I think this only with so much going on in the football world. Some pretty big things that happen right now.
Yeah, I think we hit it all. And then, of course, the biggest game still to come. We'll be back next week to talk about the AFC and NFC championship games. And then, of course, Super Bowl matchup will be set. So we'll be talking all about that. So please join us for that. So as we wrap up today's show, I want to say thank you to King B. Johnson for joining us in the live chat. Really appreciate it. That's the best way to join us here on YouTube. And hey, if you're watching on YouTube, do all the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, comment. We appreciate that stuff. It really helps us out. And hey, if video's not your thing, we got you covered. We're on audio platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So check us out there. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating and subscribe to our show on that platform. And you can also find us on social media. We're at Watchers Basement. Check us out there. Please use the hashtag Watchers Basement. We'd love to hear what you have to say about this episode and other shows. We've got plenty of stuff coming up. Captain America Brave New World's coming up in a few weeks, so we definitely be talking about that and other things. But that about does it for this week. So for Tristan, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.